You're in the middle of your last minute party prep, you're putting food together, maybe you still got your apron on, maybe you're fixing your hair, and the doorbell rings. Ah! It's your early guests.
Shit.
Welcome to my channel, I'm Mara. If you're new here, this channel is dedicated to helping make you a more confident hostess. So I share tips and tricks to make things easy, to simplify it so that you can have fun at your own party. Now today's topic, we're talking about something that I think a lot of us have experienced, and it can be a little bit frustrating, and that is, how do you deal with guests who show up too early for your small gathering or your dinner party? As a hostess, it's really important when those early birds show up to keep your composure, because that's really going to set the tone. You want to put your guests at ease, and you also want to put yourself at ease. Now, I did a video on what to do when late guests arrive, and I'm going to put a link for that here and also in the notes if you want to check that out. But so many of you reached out and messaged me privately about your own frustrating stories and some hilarious ones. But it was really clear from those messages that while late guests can throw a wrench in the plans, those early guests, those are the ones that really kind of throw you off your game, which is why I'm doing today's video. And you know what? I think we're going to do today's video. I need a coffee. Let's get a coffee and we can chat more about what to do with those early birds. Now, I would agree. Those last few minutes are crucial prep time. That's my time to, wait, let me do this. Okay. That's my time to set out the drinks, maybe get the charcuterie ready, finish my hair. So I'm really counting on those few minutes. So yes, ideally you should be ready before guests get there. But when they arrive early, like sometimes that can't be helped. So don't take my word for it. I checked with the Emily Post Institute, who is like the foremost expert in all things etiquette. And Emily Post Institute says, and I quote, "House guests should never arrive early. Instead, they should arrive on time or up to 15 minutes late from the appointed time." Now we know what time guests should arrive, but what happens when they actually don't arrive when you expect them to and they come early? Okay, so our coffee is made, and now let's start with a couple of tricks or tips for what you can do before guests arrive. And one of the first things that you can do is on the invitation. Be clear about the time that it's going to start, and then you can use a little bit of humor. So what you might say is something like, anyone who shows up early is going to be forced to entertain us. Or, please don't come early because you just never know what you're going to get. Something like that. I feel like humor is a great way to diffuse a situation and still really effective at getting your point across. The next tip is to trick yourself a little bit. Now, I know this is gonna sound weird, but it really does work. So what I like to do is I'll set a timer on my phone for 20 to 30 minutes before the party is supposed to start. And then I try to beat the timer. So I make it like a little mission, a little game for myself to get everything ready before that timer goes off. And if you've got little ones, if you've got family as well, you can get them involved too. And it's a game where everybody's trying to beat the timer and be ready that 20 to 30 minutes. And that gives you a really good buffer so that should those early guests pop up, then you're ready for them. Another idea is to prepare a little something in advance. So maybe it's like a small appetizer, and it could be something as simple as just a bowl of peanuts or pretzels, or maybe have like a self-serve drink station ready, something where guests who show up early can keep themselves occupied and stay out of your way while you finish those last minute preparations. This next idea kind of goes hand in hand with the one that I just shared earlier, and that is to create a VIP area or a V.E.P area, or a very early people area. So create a comfortable spot where you've set up some snacks, you've set up some drinks, and you've set up some stuff to maybe keep them occupied. So think about maybe those little joke books or little individual puzzles, you know, those little brain teasers that I'm talking about, even a really beautiful coffee table, just something where they can, again, entertain themselves while you finish the prep work. And the nice thing about this V.E.P area is that guests will feel like they've been taken care of, and they'll feel like you've really thought about them ahead of time instead of just like launching them in front of the TV while you go get ready. For me, our V.E.P area tends to be the kitchen island because it seems like that's where everybody gathers. So I make sure that I've always got space on that kitchen island, and I've got some snacks there and I've got some drinks there so that those early guests can pull up a chair and just sit with me while I finish doing the prep. We've talked about what to do before your party. Now what do you do when guests actually arrive, when those early guests actually show up? First things first is to greet your guests who arrive early. You're going to greet them warmly, right? That's going to set the tone for you and for your guests. So if you're relaxed, they're relaxed, even though they're early. I would also say that probably your early guests don't realize how early they are, and they don't realize maybe how much you still have left to do. So, we want to kind of greet them with some grace. The next question that comes up is, should you point out that early guests are actually early? And that's a tough question. I feel like if you know people well enough, it's okay to point that out. So I might say something like, I'm so glad that you're here. You're just a little bit ahead of schedule. I still have a couple things to finish up. And then at this point, I would lead them over to my V.E.P area and say, make yourselves comfortable. Let me know if you need anything else. I'm just gonna pop in the kitchen and finish doing what I need to do. And I promise I'll be back. And the last thing is what I like to call a welcome task. So depending on how well you know people, how comfortable you are with them, if your early birds arrive, you can give them a really simple, easy task to do, like something like maybe lighting the candles or putting the place cards on the table or handing you that box of crackers up in the cupboard. I think it's a really great way to get them involved, and it's kind of a blessing because they're gonna help you get ready, and then they feel like they're contributing in some way. Now, what do we do with our chronic offenders? You know who I'm talking about, those people that no matter what time the invitation says, you can always count on them being 20 minutes, 30 minutes, God help us, even 40 minutes early for the party. So I have some ideas on how we can deal with those early birds. Coffee break. Okay. So one of the things I want to point out is that sometimes people who are constantly early actually don't realize how that really puts extra stress on you as the host. So maybe they don't actually realize it. And the second thing is that they feel like maybe by showing up early, maybe they can help you with something. And I will say this, if you're one of these people who show up early because you think people might want help, if the host hasn't asked for help, it's not helpful. It's not helpful. So don't do it. The other thing I'm going to say about chronic offenders is that sometimes people believe that because they're friends or family, like what's the big deal if we show up early? Like that's all right. I've seen Mara without her hair done before. It's not a big deal. So I love you, but also it's interrupting the flow a little bit of the plans because I love you, I want to spend time and attention on you. And I feel like when you show up early, I can't, commit to doing the things that I needed to do because I want to pay attention to you as well. So I think that's kind of the push and pull with friends and family who show up early and think they're really being helpful and that it's not a big deal. Does that make sense? Guys, let me know in the comments below if you guys have chronic offenders and how you deal with them, because I do have a couple more ideas for you. Now, I know some people deal with their early chronic offenders by setting fake start times. So they'll tell them that the party starts actually later than it does, just to be sure they can, be ready before those people show up. I'm not a big fan of that. Just like with the late arrivals, I'm not a big fan of that because I think as a hostess, I have enough to do to remember that I don't want to remember who I told what time to. So that's me personally. But if that works for you, then go for it. I would much rather have a heart-to-heart with that person. It's not something that I would do the day of the party, but perhaps ahead of time or maybe afterwards. Just letting them know and setting clear boundaries might help to relieve some stress, because odds are they actually may not know what a tizzy or what like the stress that they're creating. Having a heart-to-heart can clear lots of things up, and then hopefully they'll arrive on time, or best case scenario, 10-15 minutes late. This next idea for your chronic early birds is to have a pre-arranged errand for them. So you know that they're going to show up early. So have an errand that they have to run when they show up. So you're going to come to the door and you're going to say, thanks so much for showing up. We need you to run out and grab some ice, or could you run to the store and grab us some napkins, or oh my God, we forgot to grab something. Whatever it is, make something up. And then that gives you some extra time to finish getting ready, and they're on their way doing something that they think is helpful for you. And the last tip I have for you is to just embrace the chaos, right? I mean, if you know people are always going to be early, that's just the way it's going to be. Invite those early guests behind the scenes, set up your V.E.P area, keep them occupied. I mean, have a good laugh about it. So there you have it, a few easy tips for handling those early guests with a little bit of charm and a little bit of grace and a whole lot of humor. Remember, hosting really isn't about perfection, it's about connection, and it's about making everyone feel comfortable, including you, the host. So until next time, happy hosting. Boop. This thing on. Wine helps. No, Mara, we're gonna start that all over again. I'm gonna have to cut that out. Dang.